Hey y'all, it's the girl with the mic and a million thoughts, your favorite host with the most, Koko, your favorite auntie, big sister, new homegirl, and welcome back to Everything is Onions, where we peel back life's layers one truth at a time. If you're new here, this is a space for deep conversations, raw truths, and no tears. Mostly. And today we're getting into one of my favorite topics, what it means to really be grown. They say that healing your inner child is the real definition of growing up, but nobody tells you how to find her in the first place. You ever notice how people love to say, I'm grown? Like it's a badge. Like there's a magical age where the world just makes sense. Bills stop stressing you out and you finally know what you're doing. Yeah, no. If we're being real, most of us are just adult children with jobs, responsibilities, our own children, and unhealed versions of ourselves still running the show. We like to call it adulthood, but half of the time we're just winging it with better vocabulary and worse sleep. Our onion up today is big grown-ups. We're peeling back the layers of what it really means to be grown, beyond rent payments and beyond birthdays. Because the truth is, we don't just become adults. We carry the kids we used to be. And whether we know it or not, that kid is still influencing our choices, our relationships, our fears, and even how we love. Let's get into the first peel, the illusion of being grown. We've been told that being grown is about independence, about paying bills, getting your own place, minding your business. But if that's the case, why does half of adulthood feel like we're raising ourselves? I think somewhere along the way, grown got rebranded as unbothered. Like maturity means not caring, not reacting, not feeling. But the gag is, that is not maturity. That's emotional shutdown, dressed in adult clothes, like the little rascals in that suit. We've got a whole generation of people out here talking about they don't need anybody, when what they really mean is, I stopped expecting people to show up for me. We don't have community anymore. We don't have a village. We call it peace, but in reality, it's really isolation with better lighting. You know what's funny? As kids, we could not wait to grow up. I could not wait to grow up and be 18 and go on spring bling. I thought that adulthood was going to be like the Hot in Here Nelly video. I thought we were going to be living it the fuck up. I take back every time that I was a child and I said I wanted to be. We thought that grown folks had freedom, that they could stay up late, buy snacks, and go out when they wanted to. They didn't have to answer to anybody, or so we thought. Then you actually get grown and realize, yes, you can stay up late. But now it's 2 a.m., you have to be at work at 8 a.m. Your kids need to be to school at 7. You thinking about rent, your purpose in life, and that check engine light on in your car. Nobody tells you that adulthood comes with anxiety and back and knee pain. It's wild how when you're a kid, you think that adults know what they're doing. You think the adults around you have it all figured out until you become one, until you become an adult and realizing that everybody has been improvising since the beginning of fucking time. Your parents didn't have it figured out either. They were just slightly taller kids with more responsibilities, as Tommy Pickles would say. That's the real illusion of being grown, thinking it's a finish line instead of a loop, a continuous cycle. We're constantly cycling through new versions of ourselves every single day, shedding old lessons, learning new boundaries, and trying to figure out how to do better without breaking the fuck down, without jumping off a damn bridge. And let's be really honest. A lot of us are still chasing the version of grown that our parents molded. For some of us, that looked like silence and survival. For others, it looked like control and perfectionism. And nobody told us that adulting would mean unlearning half of the bullshit that helped us survive our childhood every single day. Being grown doesn't mean you stop falling apart. It means you learn how to fall apart gracefully and build with a little bit of self-awareness. You don't just get wiser by aging. You get wiser by paying the fuck attention. And to be very honest, some people don't grow. They just get older and meaner and senile. Because a wise man once told me an old fool was a young fool. A lot of older people have mistaken age for evolution, and the two are not synonymous. Growth isn't just about what you've been through. It's about what you've processed. That's what this episode is about. Realizing that grown isn't just an image or independence. It's about accountability, self-awareness, being honest enough to say, I'm still figuring it the fuck out. I do not know what I'm doing. I'm winging it here. I'm winging it. Because maybe that's what real adulthood looks like. being brave enough to admit that you're still becoming one. So let's talk about the messy middle. Let's talk about the version of you that's still sitting inside your inner child. Psychologists say the inner child is a part of us that holds our earliest moments, fears, and unmet needs. It's not some mythical thing. It's simply your stored experiences. Every time you felt unseen, unheard, unsafe as a child, your mind makes a little mental note and it goes right into your subconscious. And those notes, they turn into habits. That's why you might flinch when somebody raises their voice, or why you may overachieve just to feel worthy, or why you can't handle being ignored. Because as a child, silence felt like a punishment. We learn our bad habits young. We learn them early. Bad habits don't form when you're 32. Well, you do pick up new bad habits as you go, but a lot of the larger bad habits that we have, we learn them as children. As somebody who's worked with kids for a very long time, there are so many behaviors that I see 10-year-old, 5-year-old children doing that I also see grown ass adults doing too. And yes, we do learn our bad habits young. And it's not simply because our parents were just evil, but because they were teaching us from what they knew too. As a parent, parents are winging it. Again, as somebody who has worked with children, something that I like to point out is the fact that I had to learn how to parent children that were not mine, children that I could not discipline how I would discipline my own children if I had them. I had to learn to work with hundreds of different kids every single year and still be able to reach them, still be able to make them feel safe and comfortable and heard. And a lot of parents only ever parent their children. The average adult does not have to deal with children that are not their own. Therefore, they don't really grasp the concept of how different children actually are. The same way I talked about the hot stove theory in an earlier episode, how children learn differently. We all, as human beings, learn and process differently. And a lot of parents are literally winging it. They don't know what the hell they're doing either, especially when they're first time parents. They're winging it. However, if the love that a parent was giving was conditional, a child will learn to perform. If affection is rare at home, a child will learn to chase. They'll learn to chase affection. They will be craving affection and attention and love anywhere they can get it. If emotions are punished, you learn to hide, you learn to shut down. And the wild part, those lessons don't disappear when you turn 18. They actually evolve, sneakier grown up versions of the same exact defense mechanisms. Maybe your inner child became a people pleaser, constantly trying to earn safety. Maybe yours became hyper independent because relying on people always led to disappointment. Or maybe your inner child thinks conflict equals danger. So you either shut down or completely explode. A good example that I saw on TikTok was a dad making his daughter run back and forth and work out as punishment instead of giving her spankings. But psychologically, it's pairing shame with exercise. When a child learns, I have to run when I'm in trouble, adulthood will turn working out into penance instead of joy or healing or something that's actually good for the body. That's why you have grown adults saying, I have to earn a meal, or punishing themselves with working out after having a cheat meal, a piece of cake, a piece of pizza. Exercise stops being care when it becomes a consequence. And consequences don't create connection. They create compliance with side effects. We do this in 1,000 small ways. You don't go listen, go run. You were acting up, go run, go do push-ups. It sounds harmless. It sounds like a better option than spanking your child until you realize that you just taught a nervous system that sweat equals shame, effort equals punishment, and your body is a problem to fix. Later, that can turn into extreme fitness, competitive hustling, or quitting altogether because going to the gym feels like going to jail. If you want to teach accountability, don't assign the body as an enemy. Teach repair. You broke it, let's fix it together. You were unkind, how can we make it right? Accountability should strengthen a relationship. not sever it. If my consequence isolates me from you, I learn to hide it better, not to love it better. Now take that same dynamic and put it at the dinner table. You can't get up from a table until that plate is clean. How many of us have heard that? Or if you don't eat all your food, I'm going to whoop your ass. That's not nutrition. That is conditioning. You just taught a child to ignore their hunger or fullness cues to avoid pain. Fast forward. Now you have somebody who has a terrible, unhealthy relationship with eating, emotional eating, guilt eating, fish in their plate even when they're full, or swinging to the other extreme, restricting themselves with a side of shame. We call it picky eating or bad habits, but often it's just body mistrust we installed on purpose. Food becomes moral, good or bad, when it should be neutral and nourishing. There's so many other things that fall into this. The silent treatment as discipline. All that does is teach a child that love can be withdrawn from mistakes. It creates a people pleaser. It creates fawning. It creates a pick me, public humiliation. And we see this way too often on TikTok. We see this way too often on social media in general. You're teaching a child that an apology is a performance, not repair. That creates social anxiety or perfectionism. Now, this one can be a little touchy. This one is definitely a moderation, but weaponizing grades. A's get love, B's get distance. It can potentially turn your child's worth into a report card, and that translates over into adulthood as chronic overachievement with burnout. Now, I'm not sitting here saying that you should not reward or punish your kids for bad grades because, again, that's something that's to each his own, and every child responds differently to these things. Again, negative and positive reinforcement is a thing. You have to figure out if your child responds to negative or positive reinforcement. But for a child that needs positive reinforcement and you're weaponizing their grades, especially when the child is lacking. And a part of that could be on your job as a parent, especially if you're not helping them to succeed, to stay on topic. If you're weaponizing the grades, comments about a child's body, you don't need seconds. Pants getting a little too tight, getting a little fat. Saying things like that to a child or a young adult, young teen, it instills body shame and identity shame. And then later on in adulthood, we call it confidence issues and being insecure. The theme is simple, but it's heavy. When punishment replaces teaching, kids learn to disconnect from their bodies, from their needs, and also from the adults that they are trying so desperately to please. And then that disconnection grows up with them. And then these are the people that are out here in the dating pool, just big ass kids. Now let's talk about that. Building our love maps. John Gottman is very well versed in relationship, and he talks about love maps. It is the first internal blueprint that you have for what love looks like, sounds like, feels like. If you grew up in a house where I love you sounded like chores done perfectly, you learn that service equals safety. If you learn that I love you looked like silence after an argument or after a fight, you learn distance equaled stability. If I love you meant buying gifts instead of saying I'm sorry, you learned avoidance with perks. So as an adult, you keep following the same map. You pick partners that feel familiar, not partners who are actually healthy. And you see, chemistry is sneaky like that. Chemistry is often recognition, not compatibility. You feel like home can be beautiful unless home was chaos. Home was criticism. Home was coldness. Home was abuse. And to update your love map, you need a few honest coordinates. What does safety feel like in your body? Steady breath, soft shoulders, a warm belly. And what does danger feel like to you? A tight chest, a clenched jaw, numbness, sweaty palms. Your body is the compass. Your mind just tells you the story after. And don't get me wrong, your map can change. You are allowed to choose the routes that don't end where your parents' roads did. Now let's talk about reparenting. Reparenting isn't trendy language right now, but it's daily practice. It's building an inner home where you are guided, soothed, and seen. Think of it as repeating 4 moves. Recognize, rewind, reassure, reroute. That's the process. Catch the pattern, ask how old it feels, soothe that version, and choose a new behavior. And this is where you come in. Morning check-ins, real meals, joyful movement, bedtime routine, a set schedule. Repair your vocabulary and boundary lines. Relax, unwind, and reset. Take care of yourself, not just as a luxury, but as medicine. Reparenting is how you turn knowing better into doing better. It's how you stop running from your truth and start holding on to. If you need a new mantra, I believe me first. That's adult you putting a hand on little you's shoulder and saying, I've got us. Now let's get into no tears and just truths. We like to talk about healing like it's pretty, but real healing is messy as hell. It's ugly crying in the car. It's reliving memories you buried deep down inside. It's even losing people who like the unhealed version of you better. Growth doesn't always look like progress. Sometimes it looks like a loss. It feels like a loss. But sometimes a loss can be proof of movement. You're not always who you used to be. And that's the damn point. Healing your inner child means facing the adults who never healed theirs. It means forgiving people who might never say sorry. It means no longer abandoning yourself to keep the peace. Awareness without compassion turns into self-criticism. But awareness with compassion, that's grace. That's growth. The truth to all this, growth hurts, healing is inconvenient, and being a big grown up doesn't mean perfection. It means awareness. That's the peace part. That's the freedom part. If there's one thing I want you to take away from this, it's that being grown isn't a finish line. It's a practice. We're all still raising ourselves in some way. Some of us are learning how to reparent our inner child. Some are forgiving the ones who raised us. But I would like to think that all of us are just trying to free ourselves from the scripts that we didn't write. So take care of yourself and take care of the kid inside of you too. If this hit home for you today, leave a comment. Share your experience. Talk to me. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe to Everything is Onion because somebody else out there needs to peel this layer too. Can't wait to talk to you guys again. Thank you for listening. I love you all, and I will see you guys next time.